What's up? What's up? I'm back. I wanted to get into escapism. It's really an easy topic, to be honest, and most of us understand it, but we just get lost in it so fast because it's real quick. Like from veganism to it's so many shits. From being in a book club to fucking fantasy. What's the shit called? Sports fantasy. What's the shit called? I think that's what it's called. But those are all different escapisms. Video games is just different escapisms where it makes you happy because you get to ignore the real world. Movies, music, music is a big one because music is so good at making us feel better. But the fact that you gotta always plug, like that's literally you detaching from reality when you put in music and going into your own little space. Why do you need your own little space? Where you feel like it's just you, I can control these thoughts, I can feel good in these emotions. As long as I don't hear no more outside bullshit. It's escapism. What do you keep running from? And that's the biggest thing. Like we want to unplug from society a lot, but if you got to keep going in and out, keep going in and out, what's the benefit to you? Are you just doing it because that's the easiest thing in the sense of that's all you know? Or for like, look at it like Rich Dad Poor Dad. He was like, you keep jumping from job to job, but the true thing is yourself. Like knowing that you really don't, you're really not too tolerable of other people disrespect. So, I mean, that's what you're gonna get in jobs where they really don't care about your time. So the best thing is to do is to create for yourself and be the controller of your time. And that's the biggest thing is like, if you got to keep detaching, why do you keep unplugging? Are you unplugging from your relationship a lot? Are you unplugging from your job a lot? Are you unplugging from your parents a lot? Or do you need to have a different perspective towards these things? Most likely. Most likely. I unplugged from Twitter and a lot, and that's what made me create this YouTube and made me control my emotions. It made me go through a lot of things, but I had to realize what Twitter was. I had to have a higher perspective in the sense of I had to become a god, and Twitter had to be a fucking mortal in a sense. Like I had to stop letting it affect me like it was God and it was everything because for so often people on Twitter think everything on Twitter is real or everything on Facebook is real. Like no, that shit's I mean for the most part illusion because most people never act like that in reality. So most of these people thoughts and shit, even if these are their true thoughts, they're never express this shit in reality. So um, I had to understand that. I had to come from a higher perspective and stop letting those things affect me. And that's like becoming a god over these things. And even if I wanted to dibble and dab over it, I had the control over it, not it controlling me. And I talk about that with love and so many other different emotions and elements. Like we can let these elements control us, or we can become the controller of those elements. And that's the same thing with escapism. Like if you keep running into these things, like being humble, you can be over humble, and that's your escapism because that's how you want to be looked at in the world. If you looked at as aggressive, you might have to fend for yourself or fight for yourself, and you know you can't fight, so you'd rather be humble all the time. So that's a part of you had knowing your weaknesses and not really wanting to fix them. So you run away from that. You run to that in a sense, and there's so many things where same with people that's the opposite, the complete opposite of that. They think if they're loud, that people won't try them and shit like that. And we often know that the loudest person in the room is often the most weakest. But it just going to show like that's you run to that because you think that's how that's the most beneficial to you. But that's just an illusion in a sense. Like I said with social media, those are just illusions. People think or might act in all these different things. For the most part, they acting happy and acting satisfied with life, but for the most part, you're not. Because if you was, you wouldn't even be on Twitter or these social medias. And that's the biggest thing I have to say to people. Like, bro, if I was touching the people, if I had my own outlets and shit, like if I had everything I really wanted, I really wouldn't be on Twitter because I know that Twitter is not beneficial to me in a sense, 100% beneficial to me. For the most part, I might touch every few people, but Twitter just don't work for me in a sense. But I just know even then, like if I was happy, bro, if I was like in the island somewhere, bro, why the fuck am I logging on to Twitter early in the morning to see if somebody view my shit or if my shit got any more buzz or some shit like that. For other people, it's like it, or did they favorite if they did they crush like they shit. It just depends or whatever. But for me, I have my reasons to get on social media and still log into even the what do you call it? The matrix on in the phone or whatever, the internet matrix. There's more than one matrix technically. But that's funny. Now that I said that, it's kind of off topic. It's more than one matrix. It's like the internet is the spirit to the physical shit that goes on. Like nobody might say shit in public, but as soon as they get on Twitter, that's their social media. You start to see their true colors, and that's like their spirit. And when you look at the spirit of America, we see it's to make America great again. But when you go in public, they're like, I don't even know how Trump won and shit like that. But it's just funny. But just thinking of more escapism, I talked about like I was thinking about my granny. And middle-aged women, like if they don't have a husband or something like that, they get lost in books and like fantasy sexual books or just novels period. But I've seen sexual for the most part, where you get the Zane Lowe's and shit like that. Women know what I'm talking about. But your granny and your mama got all the books. And it's because they don't know how to actually have love in their lives, because they never really worked on themselves in a sense and never figured out themselves. They always thought life was going to be this type of way. Now at this age, they still think it's going to be that way, and they read these books and they're not helping them any better than it's not really helping them grow anymore, because it's just fantasies and more illusions. So you're thinking love going to be like this, or you're thinking romance should be like this, but it never really comes like this. So these books create a sense of perfect love or perfect romance or perfect sex or perfect passion for each other, but that shit's bullshit. And it kind of ignores the realities or the real shit, or sometimes it even amplifies the real shit to where you're scared of even dealing with relationships and not being able to take them serious. It just depends on what books you're reading. But I know for women, they get into novels real big when they're getting to that 30-year-old age, and it's because they're not happy in this society. And those books are the closest things that can make them happy. And it's because they escapism sounds bad because it's like you're running for something, but you subconsciously was not fixing yourself. So in the long run, it was worse for you, and you didn't notice it. And that just goes to people that's not conscious and not aware. You might think you're happy now, but in the long run, you're going to see how miserable and where you made the wrong mistakes later, because you're going to start to be conscious and aware when you really don't have the things that you thought you'd have in the future. And that's because you really didn't work for those certain things. You just thought they would come to you. And that's the truth, bro. Like, so many old people think the love of their life are just gonna walk into their life, but it's like, you're not that lovable, so why would the love of your life walk into your life? And my granny's not that lovable. When I say the things she says, she can be very hurtful, and that's where I get some of my I don't give a fuck mentality saying with my mom. Like, we kind of all got that. And my granny probably got it from somebody else that was somebody that was hard on her and wasn't really listening to her emotions and feelings and told her to just work and do whatever to do. So, and that shit get passed down real smooth, especially in a Christian family. So, yeah, that's probably why I have so much angst towards love and what true love really is. But I know my granny, my mom has a boyfriend, I believe now, but I know that certain people in my family looks for certain things, but not really understanding why they're not truly satisfied with these things. And I mean, there's certain levels to it. My granny she always have friends and shit, but it's like you know how you got that uncle that come around, and they only come around every once in a while type shit. Seasonal relationships, like it's like they like each other, but they don't really know how to deal with each other, so they only come around each other every once in a while. And that's because they're not really tolerable people. And the older you get, the more intolerable you become, because you never really worked on yourself. You never really understood yourself. You really don't even know who you are, honestly. And but besides the most part, you might know that you're bitter and shit like that, but you don't know why you became bitter and all these other things. So, like I said, we start to bury ourselves with escapisms. Like if you're 60, 70, 50 years old, like, bro, there's so many different things that you would put on top of this shit. Like, you had so many different distractions that you got to start to unlayer yourself. And the more you get older, the harder it becomes. That's why when you look at Bobby Hemming and shit like that, they talk to these people, but they know that they're just flipping from religion to another religion. So it's going to be harder for them than somebody that's a young person. And that's why they kind of say kids are the future, but it's also understanding that the adults have to teach the kids too. But, yeah. I mean, that's even escapism, saying that the kids are the way. Now, the parents don't want to do no work. Like, so since you ain't doing no work, you think the kids going to have all the answers. And it's like, nah, nigga, we not gonna have all the answers. We're gonna be able to put a lot of shit together, but you got to be able to give us something. And the more you give us, the more we got to work with. But the fact that you think that we just gonna manifest, we just gonna be the answers, like this, that's backwards. That's a part of escapism. Same for if you just rely on your parents, like that's escapism. You know that that's not the true reality we live in. Like that's maybe what we want. Maybe that's what books tell us it's supposed to be, but in this reality, that's not what it is, and that's how you have to move accordingly. And that's a big thing with girls being raped and talked about how they dress and shit like that. Like it's not that you shouldn't be able to show yourself, but you know what reality is, and you're supposed to move according to that reality. Same for black people. We're supposed to be able to talk to cops however the fuck we want to, because they supposed to have a better or not better morals, but they supposed to be better trained and just deal with these situations more, but that's not the case. So we better shut the fuck up if you really want to understand what reality is and understand how to move through it. Like you can try to buck certain realities, but they're bucked back in a sense because that's the reality that you live in. You have to understand and become balanced to that reality. And I think that's what it means when it says follow the land of the law, because it's not saying like that's your everything, but if you want to move, even if you are godly, like, you're going to have to probably pay taxes. You're going to have to do these things because they're going to try to hold you in a sense. And that's why Jesus didn't say don't pay in a sense, you know, when I talk about, well, everybody don't watch all my videos, but in a sense of when Jesus said you pay this dude his taxes that's on the front of this coin versus you pay God what he owed or whatever. And that's the same shit. But, yeah, I mean, what's other escapism? I mean, of course, the whole Jesus thinking the second coming of Jesus and you don't have to work to meet him, that's escapism. You think he's just going to come back and save you from your treachery? No, nigga, you got to work. You got to do some of the work yourself. Even if he meets you halfway, nigga, when you going to start walking halfway? And that's the biggest thing. They think repenting is halfway, I guess, maybe, but that's a part of their escapism and not truly understanding, like, bro, how would you feel if you had to do 99% of the work while somebody else benefited off of that? That 1%, they do 1%, they get the benefit off the whole thing, like they did most of it. You wouldn't like that, like, or even if you was like, I used this analogy before, but I mean it's just as a God, bro. Like if you was giving somebody and you was giving somebody and they never was able to flip that for themselves or really truly understand what you're doing for them, it's like, bro, you don't even value what I'm doing for you, so it's like I'm done fucking with you in a sense. And that's how I look at Jesus or any God or the universe. It's like, bro, if you're not going to start doing the work, how it's going to meet you? Like, how even know you serious about this shit? But that's my views on escapism too, where, you know, people just think that the God's just going to come back and do 100% of the work. In my perspective, shit, they did everything they going to do already. So they gave us the steps, they gave us the tools. Now we just have to work from there. And if you look in the Bible, shit, it's there. It's definitely there. But people don't want to really do the work, so that's a form of their escapism. You can say weed, shrooms, bro. The shrooms can definitely become escapism, but I wouldn't say definitely, but for me, I know I don't want to keep taking shrooms. I'm like, nah, I don't want to take shrooms anymore. I want to be able to do this shit myself. And then once I feel a certain way, I might take them again. But literally, shrooms made me feel like I don't have to take shrooms ever again. I feel like it's me. I don't feel like it's a temporary high in a sense, but then once you start to come down, you start to see the difference. You're like, fuck, I thought I had it. I thought I was going to keep it this time. But that's just my personal experience. I don't know if other people go or feel like that. But, yeah, I mean, if you just microdosing, like what people talk about, that shit can become escapism. And, of course, I talk about weed. Anything could become escapism if you don't truly understand why you're doing these things and what's the product of these things. Because literally, we're creatures of habits, and the things that we pick up come from those habits. That, you know, I think I explained that right. The things that we do come from those habits those habits, whatever those habits create, like they're going to create some type of emotions and some type of experience. So from those experiences and emotions, you start to pick up certain things. Either it's if you like to watch more comedy for laughter, or if you like to watch more drama shit because it resonates with you over heartbreak or whatever. Whatever your habits or whatever your creatures have formed, you're a product of your shit and not, you know, producing or the creator. So until we start to flip that, that's you're gonna start to. I mean, that's how you kind of break down your habits and some of the things that you're running towards and running away from. But